Anthony DiMarco with Daily Faceoff. Excited to have him on board this season. And Anthony, you're going to be covering a wide range of things around the league, but you also have a focus on the Philadelphia Flyers. So let's start with their first game of the season, which features the much anticipated debut for Matvei Michkov. Give me your 360 view of Michkov. He's starting up in the top six. Do you like where they have him slotted? Did you like what you saw from him in preseason? And what are expectations like? Are they too high or just perfect?
Well, what's not to like about what you saw in the preseason? He led the preseason in 7 points in 4 games. He is playing on the left wing, which I found a bit peculiar because he has kind of made his stardom based on the right wing. He's starting with Sean Couturier and Travis Konechny. Obviously, the Flyers have an abundance of right wingers, specifically right shot ones. So Tyson Forster, who I thought was going to start on the left wing, starts on the right wing with Frost and Owen Tippett. Was hoping that Morgan Frost would get the first crack at centering Matvei Michkov. Sorry about that, glitched a bit. But aside from that, I think that it's exactly right where you would want him to be, right in the top 6, playing with your best player in Travis Konechny. Sean Couturier obviously had an up and down season last year, started out really well after missing the prior season, kind of petered out, found himself as a health bomb at points last season. But aside from that, I'm expecting a close to 70-point season for Michkov with the potential to get to the 82-point mark if the Flyers can figure out their power play. And as Frank alluded to, a lot of that will be dependent on Jamie Drysdale.
Yeah, that's some pretty big expectations. I know the Flyers had sort of tried to tamp down all of the Matvei Michkov talk heading into the season, but I think he even kind of exceeded their own expectations in camp. But want to ask you about one of the other big storylines around the Flyers for the last number of months. He wasn't going to report, and then he showed up. Alexei Kolosov. What's the latest on the Flyers? As you know, their goaltending situation is certainly at the very best, you could say, in flux.
I think that when it comes to Alexei Kolosov, it's a guy who feels that he should be in the NHL right off the bat. That in his mind, and maybe with the influence of some, I guess, friends, for lack of better words, in Russia, he feels that it's the AHL is much inferior competition than the KHL. And I think the Flyers and him came to an agreement on a X amount of time of him staying in North America to prove that he is NHL caliber. And then they would either make a decision for him to somehow get to the NHL or maybe go back on a loan to the KHL with Minsk. And as you allude to, Frank, like their goaltending situation is anything but a certainty. I think they're very impressed with Samuel Ersson, and he will be the starter going into the season. But Ivan Fedotov is anything but a guarantee. He was up and down. Obviously, before serving in the Navy over in Russia, he was unstoppable, as one person described to me. But obviously, missing a full year due to his military service obviously did cause some kind of an issue in maybe not his development, but just overall play. You're also now adapting to the North American style of hockey, which is much more north-south, more collisions and physicality on a goaltender on the short, on the smaller ice surface. So there is a clear path here for Alexei Kolosov to see games in the NHL this season. I think that just for him, he wants it to be a guarantee by at least November. And I don't know if the Flyers are in a position to do that because I doubt you're going to waive Ivan Fedotov. And I don't think carrying 3 goaltenders helps anybody, especially in the case of the Flyers, where you have especially 2 guys in Ersson and Kolosov that need to see playing time.
Yeah, not only that, I just don't think it's how it works. Guarantee me a spot in the NHL. I mean, how many people can actually, ask for that with a straight face without really having proved it, particularly at the AHL level first? So, one big surprise from camp, and depends on who you talk to, but Jet Luchenko, I don't know that anyone necessarily had him making the team out of camp. What are the Flyers' plans with him, and what would he need to do in order to convince them to stay beyond 9 games and burn the first year of his entry-level contract?
I don't think anyone even had them picking him at where they were, let alone making the team out of camp. But I think right now the expectation is just he's going to get the 4 games out west, and then it's wait and see. And maybe not even get the 4 games out west, just be with the team for that road trip to start the season. In terms of what they need to see for him to stick with the team beyond that 9-game free look, I think they have to see that his offensive game is caliber enough to play in the NHL. and they're not going to hurt his development offensively by keeping him in the NHL. Because in terms of the little details in his game, the skating, the defensive awareness, the positioning, I had one person describe him to me as already ahead of the curve of some already established players on the roster. For me, it's just about the offense when it comes to Jet Luchenko. Is he a top 9 caliber player to stick in the NHL? He's going to start the season, I believe, with Bobby Brink and Joel Farabee on the team's third line. He's going to see all situations per John Tortorella. And I just think they're going to have to evaluate of whether or not he would be best served by developing that offensive game by going back to the OHL for a year, presumably be getting a premier spot on the World Junior Hockey Championship club for Canada. And would it really hurt him if he stayed in the NHL offensively? Because all the other little details of his game seem to already be NHL ready.
Plenty of interesting storylines on the Flyers this season. You have a sit down with Morgan Frost that is up on dailyfaceoff.com. We'll throw the link to that in today's description of the show. Anthony, appreciate your time, man. Look forward to doing this more throughout the year.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.